The day Alex entered the restaurant as a chef, he felt the thrill of reinvention humming through his veins. For years, he had lived his life in tailored suits, high-rise meetings, and luxurious homes, each day blending into the next in a world that felt increasingly artificial. The relentless pace of his millionaire lifestyle had left him feeling empty, yearning for authenticity and connection. So today, he wore the simple whites of a kitchen worker, his hands smelling of garlic and herbs, his face shadowed under a chef's hat. He wanted to get closer to something real, something raw. Driven by a desire to rediscover himself and escape the suffocating expectations of wealth, he bought an upscale restaurant in the heart of the city and decided to take on an alias. To his new co-workers, he was just Alex, a recent hire eager to learn the ropes, but deep down, he was on a quest for purpose beyond his bank account. Hi there. I'm Goldie, and welcome to Goldie's Love Stories. Alex hadn't expected to feel so out of his element. The kitchen was a whirlwind of sizzling pans, clattering pots, and barked orders. He burned his hand 3 times his first day, nearly dropped a crate of produce, and earned more than one sideways look from the head chef. And yet, he couldn't deny the rush it gave him. But it was when he met Laura that his fascination for the restaurant deepened into something more. She had this effortless grace as she weaved through tables, carrying trays loaded with food, greeting every guest with a smile despite the obvious exhaustion on her face. Her auburn hair was always tucked behind her ear, and there was something in her eyes, a quiet resilience, as if she'd seen more than her share of hardship but refused to let it drag her down. One afternoon, Alex was fumbling with the kitchen's massive industrial coffee machine when she appeared beside him, laughing softly as she slid him a cup of coffee she'd made herself. "It's easier if you don't fight it," she said with a grin, showing him how to work the machine without it spitting steam in every direction. As she explained, her hands moved with practiced ease, her voice low but certain. In that moment, he felt a connection, a spark that caught him off guard. They started crossing paths more frequently, sharing brief exchanges and stolen smiles between shifts. Laura began showing him small tricks of the trade, like the best way to balance a dozen plates on one arm or how to ease tense customers with a quick joke. Each interaction pulled Alex further into her orbit, and each time she looked at him with that quiet understanding, he felt himself wanting to know her better. One evening, the restaurant was packed, buzzing with a Friday night crowd. Alex watched Laura as she handled a particularly difficult table with finesse, gracefully diffusing the impatience of a couple waiting too long for their wine. Afterward, she collapsed into the break room, taking a moment to breathe. Alex joined her, offering her a bottle of water. She smiled in thanks and sighed. "Sometimes I wonder why I do this," she admitted, glancing down as if hesitant to share too much. But something about his gentle presence must have coaxed the words out of her. She opened up about her life, explaining how she was supporting her younger sister through school, working 2 jobs to keep a roof over their heads. "Sometimes it feels like I'm living paycheck to paycheck, you know," she said, her voice a bit too soft for someone who kept up such a brave front. "But I've got big dreams too. Someday, maybe I'll open my own place. A little cafe by the coast. I'd love that." Alex felt a tightening in his chest as he listened. There she was, with her quiet resilience and unyielding optimism, showing him pieces of her world that no one else saw. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he could make her dream come true tomorrow if he wanted to. But he knew how it would look. To her, he was just another chef, and he had become a part of her life because of that anonymity. If she knew he owned this place, if she knew he could change her circumstances with a wave of his hand, would she ever look at him the same way? His mind raced with the conflict. He had never expected to care so much about anyone seeing him as he truly was, without the wealth or the trappings of success. But Laura was different. She saw him, even in the half-truths he'd woven around himself. She saw the person he wanted to be, not the person he was on paper. The next few weeks flew by, and their friendship deepened with every shared glance and quiet conversation. Alex found himself counting down the minutes until he could be near her again, learning her mannerisms, the way she laughed quietly at her own jokes, the way her shoulders relaxed slightly when she was with him. Each day brought them closer, and each day made his secret harder to bear. One evening, after they had both clocked out, Alex asked if she wanted to grab a bite at a little diner nearby. They spent hours there, talking about everything from childhood memories to favorite films. Laura seemed to relax in a way he hadn't seen before, her eyes softer, her laughter more open. But as they walked back to the restaurant, Alex felt the familiar weight of guilt settling over him. She had told him so much about her life, her hopes, and her fears. And he had kept his most defining truth from her. Part of him wanted to tell her, to see if she'd understand. Yet, the other part knew how fragile trust could be, and he wasn't sure if he could risk shattering what they had. The moment came one night, when they were closing up together after a particularly hectic evening. The silence was comfortable, filled with the unspoken companionship they had built. Alex looked at her, feeling the words forming on his lips. He opened his mouth, ready to confess, but then she looked at him with a smile so warm it stopped him in his tracks. "I don't know what I'd do without you around here," she said softly, her voice filled with something he hadn't heard before. Gratitude? Affection? Whatever it was, it rooted him in place, binding him to the lie he had constructed. He felt his heart race as he swallowed the confession, knowing he wasn't ready to let go of the version of himself she had come to trust. As they locked up the restaurant and walked out into the cool night, Alex knew he was standing on the edge of a decision. With every passing day, the choice grew harder, the stakes higher. For the first time in his life, he found himself caught between the world he had built and the world he wanted to share with her. Under the dim streetlights, he watched Laura wave goodbye and walk off down the street, disappearing into the shadows. And he stood there, torn between the life he knew and the life he had only begun to imagine, wondering if he'd ever have the courage to tell her who he really was. The kitchen buzzed with a chaotic energy, orders flying in and the clatter of pots and pans echoing off the stainless steel walls. Alex had never been more immersed in a world he was determined to master. Each day was a test, and he was learning, adapting, and becoming part of the rhythm of the restaurant. But today, that rhythm was about to be disrupted. Marcel, his business partner, strolled through the kitchen doors as if he owned the place, a wolf among sheep. Alex's stomach dropped at the sight of him, the man's imposing presence casting a long shadow over the bustling atmosphere. Marcel had always been a man of demands, with little patience for what he deemed inefficiencies. He prided himself on his meticulous control over every aspect of the restaurant, a quality that made Alex's secret life a precarious balancing act. "Alex, we need to talk," Marcel boomed, his voice slicing through the cacophony of sizzling pans and shouting cooks. Alex quickly wiped his hands on a towel, trying to mask his unease as he turned to face him. "The numbers aren't looking good. We can't afford to keep underperforming staff on the payroll." Alex felt his heart race. He had poured everything into this place, not just money, but passion and identity. The thought of Laura being let go, especially after all they'd shared, was a blow he couldn't fathom. "I think we should give them more time," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "The staff is starting to gel. We're making progress." Marcel raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched on his face. "Progress? You call this chaos progress? This is a sinking ship, and if you can't make the hard decisions, I will." He leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Starting with that waitress. What's her name? Laura? She's a liability, Alex. Get rid of her before she drags you down with her." A hot rush of anger flared within him. He glanced over at Laura, who was bustling about, attending to customers with that infectious smile. "She's not the problem," Alex countered, his tone sharper than he intended. "She works hard and knows this place better than anyone. If we cut her, we're losing a valuable asset." Marcel's eyes narrowed, assessing him as if trying to decipher his true motivations. "You're too close to the staff, Alex. You need to be more objective. Either you take care of this, or I will." Alex swallowed hard, a wave of frustration washing over him. He knew he was treading dangerous ground, his secret could unravel in an instant. But as he watched Laura interact with customers, her laughter echoing through the dining area, he felt a surge of protectiveness. He would not let her go down without a fight. The following day, Alex called an impromptu staff meeting, his palms sweaty with apprehension. Laura looked curious as she leaned against the counter, arms crossed, observing him. The rest of the team gathered, exchanging glances filled with confusion and concern. "Listen everyone," Alex began, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. "I know things have been tough lately. The restaurant's financial situation isn't what we'd hoped for, but I believe in this team. I don't want to lose any of you. Marcel stood at the back, arms crossed, clearly displeased. Some hard choices need to be made, Alex, he interjected, glaring at Laura. You can't keep everyone if they aren't pulling their weight. Laura is an integral part of this team, Alex shot back, a boldness swelling within him. She works tirelessly, and her dedication is evident. I won't stand by while we let her go because of some numbers on a spreadsheet. A murmur of surprise rippled through the team, and Laura's eyes widened in disbelief. Alex felt a mixture of relief and dread. He had defended her, but the implications of his words weighed heavily. What if Marcel called his bluff? What if Laura found out who he really was? Very well, Marcel said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Let's see how long that loyalty lasts. Just remember, the first sign of failure, I'll expect you to act. The meeting ended with a tense atmosphere, and Alex found himself pacing in the break room, tension coiling in his gut. Laura approached him, her brow furrowed in concern. That was really brave of you, standing up for me like that, she said, her voice tinged with gratitude. But you don't have to worry about me. I can handle it. Alex met her gaze, a mixture of admiration and worry flooding through him. You deserve a chance, Laura. You're better than this restaurant's struggles. Still, it's not your job to carry me, she replied, her voice steady but her eyes probing. I've noticed you've been acting a little differently lately. Are you okay? He hesitated, the truth teetering on his lips. I'm fine, he said, forcing a smile. Just a little stressed with everything going on. But she wasn't convinced. He could see the questions swirling in her mind, the curiosity about his odd habits, the late-night phone calls, the way he would occasionally zone out when customers spoke to him. Alex felt a wave of anxiety crash over him. How long could he keep this charade going? The tension escalated one fateful evening when Laura's ex-boyfriend, Jake, swaggered into the restaurant, a smug grin plastered across his face. Alex immediately sensed the change in the atmosphere. Laura's smile faltered as Jake approached their table, leaning in with a false familiarity. Look who's still slumming it, he jeered, glancing around as if inspecting a shoddy establishment. You know, Laura, you could do so much better than this. Why are you still here? Working your fingers to the bone for scraps. Alex felt a surge of anger. Jake had always treated Laura like she was beneath him, a pawn in his game of superiority. He stepped forward, positioning himself between them. Why don't you leave her alone? He said, his voice firm. She doesn't need your negativity. Jake laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. Oh, look at you playing the hero. What do you know about her life? You're just another wannabe chef pretending to be something you're not. The words stung, and Alex's patience wore thin. I know Laura works hard, and she's more than capable of taking care of herself. Maybe it's you who needs to step back. In the heat of the moment, Alex felt a flash of recklessness. He let slip the edges of his hidden truth, his anger making him reckless. You don't know the first thing about her or what she's capable of. Maybe if you'd cared half as much as you seem to think you do, you wouldn't have lost her. The look of shock on Laura's face mirrored his own realization of what he had just revealed. He hadn't just defended her, he had hinted at a connection deeper than they had ever shared. Jake's smirk faltered, and he stepped back, clearly taken aback. You think you're better than me? He shot back, anger flaring in his eyes. You're just a nobody playing dress-up. With that, Jake turned on his heel, storming out of the restaurant, the door swinging shut behind him with a definitive thud that echoed through the kitchen. Alex turned to Laura, his voice firm yet softening. Look, Laura, there's a connection between us that I can't ignore. It's more than just work. I see who you are, and I admire your strength. Laura's expression shifted from confusion to a mix of gratitude and curiosity. What do you mean, a connection? She asked softly, her brow furrowing. Alex stammered, suddenly acutely aware of the precariousness of his situation. I just meant you're better than what he's suggesting. You deserve respect. But the moment had passed, and the unease hung thick in the air. Laura's eyes remained fixed on Alex, searching for answers. He could feel her suspicion creeping in, a shadow over the trust they had built. Days later, the hum of the restaurant buzzed with energy as Laura maneuvered through the bustling kitchen, plates in hand, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. It had been a hectic evening, and yet, something felt different. A warmth blossomed in her chest, fueled by her growing connection with Alex. He was a mystery, a puzzle she was eager to solve. Little did she know, the truth lurked just around the corner, waiting to shatter that warmth into a million icy shards. While cleaning up after the last customers, Laura stumbled upon a magazine tucked between the cookbooks on a shelf. The glossy cover featured a photo of a man in an expensive suit, his confident smile lighting up the page. As she flipped it open, her heart sank. There he was, Alex, her chef, her confidant, a millionaire she had been falling for without realizing it. The revelation hit her like a freight train, and she could hardly breathe. The magazine's headline read, "The reclusive millionaire behind the city's hottest restaurant," accompanied by an article that spoke of his hidden identity and success. Laura's heart raced, a mixture of betrayal and heartbreak washing over her. How could he deceive her like this? He had played the role of a humble chef, yet he was a wealthy businessman hiding in plain sight. With the magazine clutched tightly in her hand, Laura stormed into the dining area where Alex was wiping down tables. He looked up, his eyes lighting up with that familiar spark, but it quickly faded when he saw the expression on her face. "Laura, what's wrong?" he asked, concern etching his features. She thrust the magazine toward him, her voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "Is this who you really are, Alex? A millionaire pretending to be a nobody? How could you lie to me?" The air grew thick with tension, and Alex's expression shifted from surprise to a somber understanding. "Laura, please let me explain." "Explain what?" she snapped, her emotions boiling over. "That you've been deceiving me this whole time? That I fell for a facade?" Alex took a step closer, desperation in his eyes. "I didn't want to hide from you. I wanted to experience life as a normal person, to find out who I really am beyond the money. I've been genuinely falling in love with you." "Love?" she scoffed, shaking her head. "This isn't love, Alex. This is manipulation. You've been playing with my emotions." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, and she took a step back, her heart breaking further with each word. "I can't do this. I can't be with someone who has lied to me. I need to leave." "Laura, please," he pleaded, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away, her resolve hardening. "Don't go. We can work this out. I'll prove to you that I'm serious about us." But Laura was already slipping through the door, the weight of betrayal anchoring her footsteps as she stepped out into the night. The soft glow of the streetlights felt like a mockery of the warmth she had felt just hours before. With each step, she resolved to leave behind not just Alex but the hurt he had caused her. Inside the restaurant, Alex felt as though the ground had been pulled out from under him. The vibrant chatter of patrons faded into a dull hum, and the joy of cooking dissipated, leaving behind a hollow ache. He had gambled everything, his identity, his heart, and now he risked losing both the restaurant and the woman he loved. Days turned into weeks, and Alex's life spiraled out of control. The restaurant struggled without Laura's dedication and warmth. He missed her laughter, her insights, the way she made even the busiest days feel manageable. Without her, the kitchen felt cold and lifeless. Customers noticed the difference, and the once bustling eatery began to see fewer patrons. In a moment of clarity amidst the chaos, Alex realized he had to make a drastic change if he ever hoped to win Laura back. He needed to show her he was serious about being honest and genuine. With renewed determination, he organized a special evening at the restaurant, a night he hoped would rekindle the magic they once shared. He spent hours preparing the menu, choosing dishes that had personal significance for both of them, flavors and scents designed to evoke memories of their time together. The walls were adorned with fairy lights, casting a warm glow over the tables, and soft music played in the background, creating an inviting atmosphere. As the clock ticked down to the opening hour, anticipation twisted in Alex's stomach. He stood at the entrance, waiting for Laura to walk through the door, hoping she would give him another chance. But as the minutes passed, hope turned to despair. The restaurant filled with guests, yet Laura's empty chair felt like a chasm in his heart. Each passing moment deepened his regret. He realized that he had lost the chance to be truly vulnerable with her. The weight of his deception loomed over him, and he understood that no amount of effort could erase the pain he had caused. Finally, at his lowest point, Alex leaned against the bar, staring into the distance. He understood that if he wanted a real shot at winning Laura back, he had to change, not just for her, but for himself. He had to shed the layers of pretense and embrace his true self, no longer hiding behind the walls of wealth and status. With a heavy heart but newfound clarity, Alex made a vow to himself. He would be honest, transparent, and dedicated to showing Laura that he could be the man she deserved. This was not just about getting her back, it was about becoming someone worth loving. Months slipped by in a quiet haze, each day blending into the next as Alex settled into a life stripped of luxury and the weight of deception. After Laura's departure, he had spent countless sleepless nights reflecting on the choices that had led him to this point. The restaurant, once a bustling hub of culinary creativity and connection, now felt like a ghost of what it had been. It was a painful reminder of his mistakes. Determined to shed the remnants of his privileged past, Alex made the bold decision to sell the restaurant to Marcel. The exchange felt bittersweet. He had poured his heart into every dish, every interaction, yet the thought of finally breaking free from the chains of wealth filled him with a newfound sense of hope. With the money from the sale, he envisioned a path that would not only honor his passion for cooking but also give back to the community. After weeks of planning, Alex launched a culinary school aimed at underprivileged students, driven by the belief that everyone deserved a chance to follow their culinary dreams. He wanted to create an environment where passion could flourish, free from the shadows of financial constraints. The school's walls echoed with laughter, the scent of fresh herbs and spices inviting students to discover their potential. Each day, he taught them not just the skills of cooking but also the importance of resilience and creativity in the kitchen. Despite his busy schedule, thoughts of Laura lingered in his mind like a half-remembered dream. He longed to reach out, to explain how he had changed, but he knew that trust was not easily regained. He continued his work, pouring his heart into the school, hoping that somehow, Laura would hear about his transformation. Meanwhile, Laura found herself in a whirlwind of emotions. Though she had walked away from the restaurant and from Alex, she could not escape the whispers of change that floated back to her. Friends would mention the culinary school, speaking of Alex's passion and dedication, how he had become a beacon of hope for young aspiring chefs. With every mention, her heart wrestled between anger and curiosity. One crisp afternoon, as autumn leaves danced through the streets, Laura found herself standing outside the school's entrance, an uncharacteristic flutter of hope and hesitation swelling within her. Memories of Alex flooded back, uninvited yet undeniably sweet. She hesitated, staring at the sign that read Culinary School for Change. In that moment, she made a choice. She would reach out, just to see him, just to hear his side of the story. Maybe there was a chance for understanding, for closure, or perhaps even more. When Alex received her message, a wave of disbelief washed over him. Laura wanted to meet. He felt his heart race with a mixture of excitement and fear. He spent the days leading up to their meeting preparing not only his culinary skills but also his heart. He wanted to show her how much he had changed, how deeply he felt for her still. The day arrived, and Alex decided to prepare a simple yet heartfelt meal for Laura, one that encapsulated their shared moments in the restaurant, the flavors they both loved. He chose a classic pasta dish, infused with fresh basil and tomatoes, accompanied by a side of garlic bread, fragrant and warm. As he stood in the kitchen, cooking with care, memories of their time together flooded back, their laughter, their debates over the best spices, the quiet moments shared amidst the chaos of the restaurant. He hoped this meal would convey the sincerity of his feelings, the depth of his transformation. When Laura finally stepped through the doors, Alex's breath caught in his throat. She looked beautiful, the soft glow of the afternoon sun illuminating her features. But her eyes held a mixture of vulnerability and strength, a reminder of the hurt he had caused. "Hey," she said softly, her voice steady yet tinged with uncertainty. "Hi," he replied, his heart pounding. "Thank you for coming." The air was thick with unspoken words as they settled at a small table in the cozy kitchen, a space filled with the aromas of simmering sauce and freshly baked bread. Alex served the meal with a nervous smile, watching as Laura took her first bite. Her eyes widened, a hint of surprise flickering across her face. "This is really good," she admitted, a genuine smile breaking through her guarded demeanor. "You've always had a knack for cooking." "Thank you," he replied, his voice steady. "I wanted to show you how serious I am about everything." "I've changed, Laura. I want to be honest with you. As they talked, Alex poured out his heart, sharing his journey since their last encounter. He spoke of the culinary school, how it had given him a sense of purpose beyond the wealth that had once defined him. He told her about the students, their dreams, and how fulfilling it felt to guide them in the kitchen. I want to do something meaningful, Laura, he confessed, his voice thick with emotion. I realize that being a millionaire doesn't mean anything if I can't share my life with someone who truly matters to me. I want to be with you. Laura listened intently, her expression shifting from guarded to contemplative. I heard about the school, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to believe it was true. I was afraid it was just another act. It's not an act, Alex said earnestly, leaning closer. This is who I am now. I know I hurt you, and I'll never be able to take that back. But I promise you honesty, transparency, and a partnership built on trust. You mean more to me than I can express. The air crackled with emotion as Laura searched his eyes for truth. The warmth of the meal faded, replaced by the warmth of hope. I don't want to get hurt again, Alex. It took everything in me to walk away. I understand, he replied, his voice steady. But I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to earn your trust back, step by step. I'll show you how much I value you. As the meal came to an end, Laura felt a shift within her. The walls she had built around her heart began to crumble, replaced by the possibility of forgiveness. She saw the sincerity in Alex's eyes, the way he had poured himself into this meal and their conversation. I believe you, she finally said, a soft smile blooming on her face. Let's start fresh. But this time, it has to be built on honesty. With that, the tension between them melted away, and laughter filled the kitchen once more. They spoke about their dreams, their passions, and the road ahead, each word weaving a new connection. As they stepped out into the crisp night air, Laura felt lighter, a sense of belonging warming her heart. Alex had found a purpose beyond his wealth, and in doing so, he had given her a partner who understood her resilience. Thanks for watching. How would you rate this story? Give it 1 to 5 hearts in the comments and let me know what you thought. This is a brand new channel, and your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed the story, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss an episode. Your likes, comments, and shares help this community grow, and I'd be so grateful to have you along for the journey. See you next time.